All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Retention Chronicles. We're here today with Mat Bingham, the Director of Technology Partnerships at Okendo. Hey, Matt.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Again, thank you so much for joining. And as always, I'm also joined by my lovely co-host, Mariah. Hey,
Whoop
Mariah.
whoop. Hi, everyone.
So Matt, we love to start these off. Like I said, super conversational. Love to start with like just you as a guy, you as a person. So I love to ask like our guests one or two things that you're excited about in your personal life before we dive into the shop talk.
Yeah, no, first and foremost, thank you, Noah and Mariah, for having me on. I'm super blessed to have this opportunity. I know you guys have been growing your podcast audience, so thank you for just having me on today. But I love the first personal question. It's instead of just diving right in, but I guess for a couple things on my end that I'm excited about is my wife and I have been like aggressively saving over the past couple of years to potentially purchase a home in the next couple of months. So
All
just
right.
in that process of like, looking at homes and thinking about options. I think that's always kind of an exciting time in your life. It's very confusing at the same time, to be honest. But it's kind of a cool milestone. And then I think just personally, I'm super excited about this holiday season. I think it's going to be the past couple of years have been really weird, but I think personally, I think it's going to be an interesting season for brands, and I'm excited to see what brands do because I'm a big consumer myself. So I'm just looking forward to the big holidays and see what I can buy for family, but more importantly for me.
So you're excited to continue the savings because as a homeowner for about 2 years now, I think, coming up in October. So yeah,
Wow.
really soon. You know, don't stop saving. I'll just tell you that. Once you buy,
Yeah,
you're nowhere near done saving.
yeah. Yeah, it's an exciting time, but it's also a crazy market here in the Bay Area in California. But you think about home ownership as a teenager or kid, and you start getting
Right.
older, and you're like, oh, this is going to be really exciting. And I live in an apartment in San Francisco that doesn't have a yard, and we have two dogs, so I'm
Mm.
very excited to be able to open a door and like be in my bathrobe with my dogs, where I don't have to get up around, like take them out to the bathroom every morning. So
Oh, that's awesome.
that's the dream. So
That's awesome. Where in the Bay Area are you looking? Anywhere specific or?
yeah, like Oakland,
Okay,
also more North Bay. Could never afford actually in SF proper, but stay here in the Bay Area, which is a great place to live.
for sure. Yeah. And I think, a testament to what you've probably done up until this point, and that's probably a great transition. I'd love to hear a little bit about your career so far and roll that into your current position at Okendo.
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. So I came up to SF, I got 2008 or 9 to finish school. I went to SF State, but right when I got out of school, pretty much every college grad goes through like, well, what the hell do I do now? But I ended up finding a job, and how I got into e-commerce was actually working for a company called My Book Buyer. It's like a textbook buyback company that we would buy textbooks from people and then relist it on our own website or on Amazon. And I basically built the whole website, the back end processing, was doing some like early on, this is like 2012, I want to say, like early on Facebook ads, like really, really like kind of learning some of the nitty gritty, even though it wasn't a direct to consumer brand, it still gave me some background. I had a short stint at Intuit. It was just a branch of Intuit for a little while, which was gave me a little taste of the corporate world, but it just wasn't for me, which I think a lot of people would agree with. But I always kind of had that like e-commerce thought in the back of my head. So I ended up actually running into opportunity at a company called Justuno. I'm sure you guys are partners with them. I was one of the first hires to kind of manage sales, and that was a team of like five at the time, 10. We were super small, and at the time, this is like 2013, 14. We were doing like Facebook likes to get a coupon. Now it's no pop-ups, but it used to be
Yeah.
like follow us on Twitter and give us a Facebook like, and it was kind of a cool experience because I got to get more exposure to like D2C brands. And at that time, it was, online shopping was starting to take off a lot in 2013, 14. And you saw a lot of direct consumers start to scale businesses through, effective paid media and email marketing. And it was really kind of a changing landscape. And I was like, this is what I want to be in. Like, this is like the cool industry. And, I'm a consumer every day. So I just like fell in love with it and did sales for about a year. But my CEO at the time, Eric, he came to me one day and was like, "We need a partner program." And he basically came to me with a sheet, a Google sheet of like all these random email addresses from agencies and tech partners. And he was like, "Figure something out." And at the time, partnerships wasn't really even kind of a big category, right?
Right.
Like, the
Yeah, I'd argue it's still sort of in its infancy, right? Like,
It's crazy to see the progression. I mean, back then, Shopify had a partner team. I remember Bronto, which isn't in existence anymore, but that was
yeah,
like the
Oracle.
standard of partnerships. So built a partner program, was there for a while, had a short stint at ShipBob as well, which was a good learning experience, and then landed here at Okendo earlier this year to kind of manage technology partnerships. And it's been a great job kind of learning about integrations, also like working with partners to kind of create co-branded stories and help merchants with their tech stack. And it's been a really cool experience. And also I get to work with people like, which is always a big plus. So it's been kind of a crazy partnership progression over the years. And seeing that I've been in partnerships since like 2015, I want to say, or even a little before that. Like, I do sometimes feel like a dinosaur, but it's also great to see that like there's such a big e-commerce partner network now, right? Like, they had the Catalyst thing in Miami, Crossbeam came out, and now it's like a whole conference. Like,
Right.
it's cool to be a part of this community and really see like really bright and intelligent people bring stuff to the space that it is fun to be a part of. So yeah, it's kind of a cool trajectory, but e-commerce is awesome, and I just love being a part of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I had a similar experience where I went to the enterprise side after being like entrenched in the startup world in the first part of my career.
Mm.
And I honestly wouldn't say that I like hated it, but one of the big reasons I came to Malemo was to get back into like more of the startup grind.
Mm.
And I actually just connected with our CEO yesterday and was telling him like I forget if it was my friend or my girlfriend, but I literally was just talking about how happy I am that I made the move. Like it is just so much more my speed, and like seeing the impact a lot more clearly, I think is
Yep,
important to me as well, which sounds like is with you too.
absolutely, dude.
Um, I'm curious, in that first gig that you were at, you dove right into like building a website and Facebook ads. Is that what you actually studied in school, or were you picking that up from scratch?
Yeah, so I actually went to school for like business management, which is kind of just
Wow.
overall,
Yeah.
a little bit of everything, right? Which is great. And then, I met that guy. I think it was a Craigslist ad. I just randomly applied, and I met him in the back of this random warehouse in Oakland.
This is the second guest we've had that said they found their job on Craigslist.
Yeah,
Yep.
it
It's an
was.
emerging pattern.
Yeah, it's definitely was back then. It was like LinkedIn was still in its infancy days. So yeah, just kind of found it, and then he brought me on to kind of manage just kind of the transactional stuff at first, and then he was like really struggling with getting people to like find him on Google, on ads. He was doing some ads, but it wasn't really working that well, and I just kind of took ownership. I was like, I might as well just try this out. And he gave me free reign, which I think looking back, I really appreciated because it gave me more of a foundation of like what to do. And I believe he actually sold his business from what I recall past a couple of years ago, but I got a pretty good foundation. I think we built it on WordPress, which was super
Wow.
simple at the time. And then
Yeah,
learning Facebook ads on the fly was like, it was such a wild, wild west back then, but it worked. So, it was a good learning experience.
for sure. I'm sure had a big impact on ending up as director of partnerships at Okendo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned Just Uno too. We're actually launching our first like actual live integration with one of our joint clients where they're going to do SMS capture on their order tracking page, which we were
Cool.
super pumped about because we think there's a huge opportunity there. But yeah, diving a little bit more into Okendo, I think, you know, you're much more established, I think, than Maloma, been around a little bit longer. But in case some of our audience doesn't know about you, could you give us a little overview of, who it's built for and the problem that Okendo solves?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kendo is a customer marketing platform. It really just enables brands to grow quicker and stronger with like building customer relationships. Brands can really just gain like a lot of like actionable insights based upon customer like preferences and behaviors. We could drive customer advocacy and drive more personalized experiences. We're actually built exclusively for Shopify and Shopify Plus brands. We work with about 6,000 plus of them, including Skims, Magic Spoon, like First Form. And we've actually really just helped brands leverage their most important asset, which is their customers. And that's collecting reviews, displaying them on site, connecting them to your channels like Klaviyo, Attentive, so you can make more personalized, emails or recommendations. And really what I like about Okendo and why I joined earlier this year was that in this space, that's considering a lot of like how iOS and Facebook updates have like really dramatically changed over the past 2 or 3 years, and it's going to continue to change with privacy laws. Really, you can't scale a business like it was when I first started. Like we used to just throw Facebook ads at lookalike audiences, and we grew that My Book Buyer to a pretty good size. But you can't do that anymore, right? You need customer insights, you need customer data, you need them to provide that information so that you can be more effective with your retention marketing. So that's really why I joined Okendo. And really, Okendo is built for anyone, really. Like if you think about your consumer behaviors day to day, like how often do you read reviews when you go to a new site? Like you go down and you see what people are talking about, how they're rating products. You do that on Amazon, you do that on D2C, you do that when you go out to eat. That's really what excites me about reviews, is that it can be not only an effective channel for your business at collecting data, but it can be an effective channel at influencing people's behaviors when they're purchasing and really aligning their decision based upon similarities between other people that have submitted reviews. So yeah, we're excited. We got a lot of new stuff coming out in the next couple of weeks that are going to be pretty interesting as well. But I like to think of it as two components. We're like a customer data platform. We collect a lot of really cool customer data, and then we also really help with like your review strategy and performance. So yeah, that's kind of a long-winded answer, but that's kind of the way I think of Okendo.
That is an awesome overview. And I know, we're standing up or already have some Okendo review integrations on order tracking pages recently, which is really awesome to see. You, you talked about the whole like idea of getting people to purchase based on what others are doing and like what others liked. I'm reading the book Influence right now, which is fascinating. And one of the chapter I'm on right now actually is called Social Proof.
Yeah.
It's like one of the 4 or 5 levers of influence that they talk about. It's right up Okendo's alley. I think the whole idea is like the more people. I think the section I read last night was literally called like there's strength in numbers, and like social proof's good, but the more social proof, the better. And I think that's pretty much Okendo's mission. I'm curious if you have any like top of mind real life examples of this working in the wild, or even just like overall metrics that you've seen in terms of how social proof impacts like buyer behavior.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's something like 95% of people read reviews before purchasing from a new site. So, people read reviews. We also notice that when people click on reviews and like sort them out by maybe like UGC or photos, or, something that's unique to Okendo is we collect a lot of attributes on the review submission. So like instead of just regular 5 stars, you can ask your customers to say, what did you use the shirt for? Is it like for workout or just regular wearing, or like a bunch of different attributes that you would find relevant as a brand. But what people do when they look at that review widget and sort it out based around their own characteristics is that We find that people add to the cart at a higher percentage. They stay on site longer. People have that, like you mentioned, the social proof. It's just kind of a way to, psychologically get over that initial barrier. I always relate a lot of things to e-commerce, like big box stores, or like any type of store.
Yeah.
Like when you walk into a cake store, there's a bunch of cakes all over the place. They all look great, but you don't really know which flavor is which, or like what's kind of the specialty. When you talk to somebody behind the counter, you get a better sense and you might make a decision. I kind of think of the same thing as reviews, like you'll look at a lot of products, you'll read some reviews, you kind of get a better sense. Maybe if you're a good brand, you're doing some personalization or on-site messaging to kind of like help me get over, I guess, that friction towards a purchase. So that's really what we see a lot with our brands, is that when they use a lot of effective review displays, not only in on site, but in email or SMS or whatever it may be, you're going to get higher engagement and higher overall conversions, because it's really just creating trust, and that's hard to do through a screen,
Right.
and we click through so much as consumers. So I click through ads, I click through emails, I'll browse stuff really quickly. Whatever you can do to kind of like alleviate my concerns in that same session, I think you're just going to increase your opportunities for purchases. And we have a lot of really cool data on our site that you guys can check out. A lot of really good ebooks from partners that we work with that mention the same type of thing. When you add that social proof, it really does, engage your customers better.
Yeah, I love that point that you brought up, that like the in-person cake example. I think that's great. And even with apparel, it's like in person, the
Mhm.
shopping experience does look different, because virtually, like you said, across the screen, it's so much harder to know, like, to see the product that you have. So the social proof kind of is a substitute virtually for like, oh, you're in a store, you can try it on, you can like feel the fabric, you can see it in person, like see how it is on you. So I love
Mhm.
that little point, or that example of like seeing cakes, like you can see them all visually, but social proof adds and takes away some of that. It adds a lot of validation to a product and takes away some of that stress.
Mhm.
That's like, oh, I'm purchasing this. Is it going to actually, are my expectations of what's online going to be met with what product will actually arrive at my house?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting too when you look at like the number of reviews. Like if there's, I'm sure you see it on like Amazon or even on D2C sites. Like there's a product and it only has five reviews and it's like 5 stars, and you're like, oh, okay, like I guess it's kind of good. But then you see the same product listed somewhere else, but it has 20,000 reviews and it's like maybe 4.1 out of 5 stars. Like
Yeah.
you lean towards the at more reviews because it's like, well, it's a larger audience, they have more trust towards it, and that's just the small like psychological things. And it's the same thing when I look on Yelp, when I look for like a restaurant, if it has kind of an okay reviews rating, but it has 50,000, it's like, well, there's always going to be kind of some variations that you're going to get, but I have a little bit more trust because there's a lot more reviews here. So yeah, no, I totally agree. I miss Walmart in the old days. Remember there was that door greeter that was super 90. Probably don't really have that, but it was creating trust. That's what we want to do as brands, is you want to create trust. You want to make people feel comfortable with their purchase, because especially now with like how the market is and people with inflation and money, like they're going to hold on a little tighter. So you got to kind of break down that barrier and say, this is going to be something really good for you. It's going to fit, it's going to be really well for your family or whatever it may be. So yeah, that's a great element to try to produce. It's not always easy, but it's worth the effort, because it can be a huge lift for your brand.
Yeah. As you were speaking, I have a question for you that came to mind. Do you ever see, like, within the same brand, a variation between different products having more reviews versus another product? And how do you like problem solve for that? So like one has like 5 reviews and then one has like 20K. I know that's a big disparity, but what does
Yeah.
Okendo kind of do to like counter that? Or do you see that's an issue, like across different brands?
Yeah, you're obviously always going to have like best sellers, and the more best
Hmm.
sellers are going to have more reviews at the end of the day. But we try to advise brands, if like there's items that you have maybe lower review rate, if you do get a purchase, maybe try creating like a less of a review length submission. So instead of asking all these things, like maybe just ask for a star rating and one attribute, or make it a little easier for me as a consumer to like leave a review, or try some different channels for that. So like maybe instead of just sending an email, maybe doing an email and an SMS review request, just to kind of increase your chances. But that's you're always going to have like items that have a lot more reviews than others because they're just best sellers. I think I saw a brand of ours, it was kind of similar. It was like 5,000 on 2 or 3 products, and then there was another 5 or 6 that were like more new, maybe like a new season, so they didn't really have as many. But I think at the end of the day, if you're displaying something, it's going to be more impactful than nothing, because when you go to an EP page that has no reviews, it's really kind of a not a turnoff. It's just kind of a hesitation, and when you create hesitation psychologically, then that's always a big impact.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
I love the Yelp example. Like it brings reviews so much to the forefront for me, because in the example you just gave where there's no reviews, like there's not a shot in hell I'm going to that restaurant. but I use Yelp all the time when I travel, like especially in places like San Francisco or New York. We're going to be there in a couple of weeks for a attendance conference. Um, and I countless times, I'm looking at a restaurant. I saw that it has 4-star, 4.5-star reviews. I'm really excited. Then I see like it's been reviewed like less than however many in my mind at that point makes sense, less than 10 times. It's like, no way I'm going there. Like no proof at all, no social proof at all that's gonna sort of get me over the line to go there, especially when there's so many options, right? So like that's very similar, I think, to the e-commerce world.
Absolutely. And the best thing about reviews is people usually leave them when they're super happy, or
Yeah.
they might be the alternative. But like at least if you're collecting that information and just like providing it to customers, it's always going to bring a level of like just comfort. I hate to keep bringing that up, but like that's all it is at the end of the day, is like creating comfort towards a purchase, or filling a need that that person's in at the moment. Especially for D2C brands, I think that's really kind of a way to capitalize, is really just creating more comfort towards a purchase. So.
100%. Yeah, as Matt was talking, Mariah, I was thinking at the end of this season we're gonna have to do like key takeaways, because there's so many recurring themes already, and this is only the third episode we're recording for our ecosystem episodes. But um, a couple of things that stuck out to me were the zero party data that we just talked about yesterday with Tomorrow Agency, and that episode isn't out yet, so I'm not going to spoil. And also, he talked a lot about the website being like think of the website as like your in-store salesperson. So like that person behind the cake store desk, the website should function as closely as possible to that personalized experience. And by giving that social proof, I think that's one sort of checkbox to be able to do that.
No, I agree. I think a lot of times, and I think brands, it's no fault of their own. They're trying to scale and grow their business, but I always kind of recommend to brands take a step back and think about how you would interact this as a brand new consumer. I think sometimes you're in the head in the sand. You're trying to fulfill orders. You're sending out an email. You're doing a social post. Like if you're an online brand, you got like 1,000 different fires to put out every day. But sometimes like maybe taking that step back and being like, how is this website build, or how is this email going to like help a new consumer build some sort of community or trust with me? Or if we're doing like a cart abandonment email, like how are we going to help them kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel? Is it more actionable in that email or not? I think the storefront, you can do so much for conversion rate optimization in terms of the design and display. But at the end of the day, with you're not adding like social proof or personalized messaging, I think you're missing out on an opportunity to make maybe a new consumer or somebody that's still learning about you, purchase from you. And I think that's no fault to own that brand owners, they got 1,000 things going on, but I always like to recommend that to them, because it's a good way to kind of like reset. It's like, okay, let's think about how this would be perceived to certain audiences to, make them feel more comfortable.
Right. I love that you just said the word new consumer, because that's exactly where I want to go next. I'm curious if you, obviously, Retention Chronicles, we like to talk about retention. And so I'm curious if you see any distinguish or like distinguishing characteristics between how reviews affect new customers versus repeat customers, and if the strategy for acquisition versus retention changes based on a brand's priorities.
Yeah, I think with like new consumers, they're probably coming through a variety of methods like paid ads or SEO, or maybe they just found you through a friend and they're just like kind of Google searching you. So I think again, the review display on the PDP pages or throughout your site are super valuable for new consumers. Obviously, you want to capture some sort of email or SMS from that visitor in that session, right? Like you got them there, you want to at least be able to send them
Right.
something free instead of having to like repay for a retargeted ad. So I think for like new consumers, the reviews are just definitely there to kind of like help build some community or trust early on. With like existing customers and like retention stuff, we always say, like if you're doing product upsells or cross sells or recommendations through marketing channels, maybe add some more social proof. So like, I guess an example is if I bought a jacket from your site and then you hit me up like a couple weeks later after it was delivered and I was getting all my tracking notifications from Malomo for a while and I got my package and submitted a review, right? Like I was like, I love this jacket. It's really cool. And then you send me maybe an email like a week or two later with like some pants that are relevant to that jacket. But if you add maybe like the aggregate star reviews for those pants, it's like, oh wow, this pants has 3,000 reviews and it matches my jacket. I might have a little bit more of I guess eagerness to purchase that than I would with it if it was just straight picture of a pair of pants. So like
Right.
adding some reviews into your communication channels are like a super valuable way to like keep VIP customers or existing customers happy. And I think there's a lot of ways you could embed reviews into those channels to kind of create some urgency or comfort again for existing customers. So and I think personalization is such a wide word nowadays. There's a lot of ways that you can make personalized efforts for large segments of audiences. It doesn't have to be super complicated, and you can use really cool tools like Rebuy or other ones that kind of help you improve that that process, because it can be kind of a data tunnel. You can go down and like really get granular, but it might not really mean anything if you at least attempt some personalization efforts for like some bigger segments of audiences. Then I think you're going to have a much better response. And I think consumers now are really asking for it. 5-6 years ago, if you were trying to do an upsell, like it was just so like manual and random. Now that things are a little more sophisticated, I think the technology has helped, but it's also, I think, kind of shifted consumer behaviors in a certain way that has been pretty impactful for businesses if they are taking that step. So yeah, I think there's always a way to improve, and I hope some people could take some of these advice today and apply it to their business.
Yeah, awesome that you mentioned the personalized product recommendations, because I know we have a couple clients who have recently, like I mentioned earlier, switched on Okendo reviews on their rebuy widget within the Lomo tracking pages. And so like even before, a couple weeks after that first package is arriving, those reviews are helping to upsell and cross sell while the package is even on the way.
Yeah.
And then I forget if it was you and I or me and Eric at Rebuy talking about like the actual data behind the repeat purchase rate, like upsells and cross sells. I don't want to butcher it, so I'm not going to say the stat, but if you know it, feel free to jump in. See like a tremendously higher repeat purchase rate if they have reviews associated with it, which is one of the reasons we were super excited to stand up the Okendo, integration for a few of our merchants, who will be really excited and interested to track what sort of data we're able to find on specifically the order tracking experience. But to your point, I think it goes well beyond that, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the market is changing, obviously. And I think back then, 2015, 16, you can like I don't know about you, but back then when I was a consumer, I would get so many ads, I'd click through and I would purchase and I would buy from so many different brands. And I don't know, the ads experience isn't really as relevant as it once was. A lot of times brands are testing out different marketplaces or channels, which is good. But I think overall, like when you buy from a new or like a company, it's easier to like market and retain that customer. And than for me as a consumer to like maybe search or find a similar product in a similar vertical. Like I would much rather buy from somebody that I already bought from if I had a good experience. Maybe I left a review, had a good shipping experience, I love the product itself, than me like searching for another brand that's like something similar. So I think the market's changing and like a lot of technology in the e-commerce space is leaning into retention. But I think even consumer behaviors is like once we get into something that we really like is we're going to kind of stick with it at least for a couple purchases. So it's really cool to see brands kind of leaning into it because back back in 2014, 15, people were just like, let's just scale and grow new customer acquisition, but they kept running into the issue of like running off a cliff, right? Like we hit this like Facebook lookalike audience cliff that we can't really go anywhere else, right? So it's good to see brands kind of like leaning into it a little bit more. And I think just the biggest player in the space, Amazon, they've created such a consumer like perception of like I'm just going to go there for whatever I need. Brands aren't obviously going to repeat that same type of behavior, but if you can get some second, third, fourth, fifth purchases out of somebody, I think that's a huge win. And it's a lot cheaper than it would be, trying to find and acquire new customers.
Absolutely. Um, okay, so I also wanted to see if I'm not sure what you can share, but if there's any, I know that you have a bunch of new stuff in the works at Okendo, if there's anything that you can share about that, and if not, no worries.
Yeah, it's really exciting. We've been working a couple months on these products. We just released a Walmart integration where you can syndicate reviews into the Walmart marketplace. We just released a Meta integration so you can syndicate reviews into your like Instagram or your Facebook shop. So again, bringing social proof to maybe a different marketplace. But in the coming days, we're going to be launching Okendo Connect, which is like a really cool I guess just a re-envision of Okendo. So it's really going to enable brands to like collect more mission critical customer intelligence or data, especially about like a consumer's preference or behaviors or experiences. Brands can use that insight to craft more like personalized and frictionless experiences that can drive more loyalty and conversions and maximize lifetime value. So really, it's just a way with Okendo Connect that you'll be able to take more of this data and just be more personalized, which I think what I've just mentioned is really what brands are leaning into. We have like such a wide range of powerful solutions that range from specific use cases like profile enrichment, CRO, marketing attribution, customer experience management. This Okendo Connect is really going to kind of a way for you to integrate the voice of a customer into every important decision you make. So that's just kind of like a 50,000-foot view of what it is, but it's really going to be Okendo is really going to be kind of your hub for like customer data and collection, and then being able to like analyze it and use it in a variety of ways. We also have two additional platform features that are going to come out that I think is really going to help with that data collection. So outside of just reviews, we're going to be helping collect like on-site surveys, post-purchase surveys,
Very cool.
profile questions, conditional questions. So it's really going to help with that data collection, and I think really going to kind of expand our platform outside of this niche we're in. We are the best in class in reviews, and we realize that reviews is a good pillar, but surveys, on-site surveys or questions are also great data collection that we can do. So that should be coming in the next week or two. We also have like a whole new branding, whole new look, and it's going to be pretty exciting. So just stay tuned and you'll see some pretty cool updates next week.
That is awesome. And if you have any like resources on this, I'm sure we could plug them into show notes afterward, Matt. But
Sure. Yeah.
I got a couple questions came up, and Mariah might have one or two too. But starting with Walmart, I'm curious. Was that like I would imagine like most of the time software companies build new feature sets, like it's very much merchant driven, and I don't know. It just doesn't come up on our calls because we always lead with we are exclusively for your Shopify Plus store. So maybe we just don't hear merchants talk about Walmart very much. But did you basically find that a ton of Shopify merchants are also selling on Walmart, and that was sort of the impetus for building this, or was it like direct client demand that was pushing this? Why'd you decide to go that route?
No, there was a few larger scale merchants that were asking for it, and really, with marketplaces like Walmart.com, Target, other areas like if you're able to add reviews, it helps with like social proof and purchasing. So, like a Shopify brand might have 2 to 3 products listed on Walmart. They wanted the reviews for that product to be
Mm,
syndicated onto their Walmart.com listing. The thing with like syndication though is that every company has their own like rules and regulations on like how it gets syndicated. So it's not really something that you can just like copy paste reviews. It's like a very like embedded process that has to go through a lot of like checks and balances before it gets published. So a lot of our bigger Shopify brands are selling on multiple channels, and that's a great strategy to diversify and find new markets or new customers. But I think some of the requests for around Walmart and the Meta one were really like we have some sales, we want to boost sales, and we want to do that with like social proof. So can we like import these reviews in there? And we did that with Walmart. It's the same thing with like Facebook. When you click on the shop section in Facebook, if you have a product listed there as a brand, you can add those Okendo reviews there. So yeah, it was just kind of a mix of like customer demand and also just really wanting to help those bigger customers really achieve their goals. So hopefully we could do more. There's so many different places we can syndicate, and I think that's something we're probably going to do in 2023 and down the road. But Walmart was a big one. We've also like probably scoped out some other ones that are going to be pretty interesting as well.
awesome. Um, that actually that's fascinating. I would have never thought about like the rules and regulations of reviews on different
Yeah.
I didn't either. When I first
marketplaces.
started, I had no clue. And then once I was in it, I was like, wow, this is really complex and hard. It shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that kind of funnels into my second question actually. Maybe not. I'm not as technical, I think, Matt, as you, but um I'm wondering like when you're collecting all of these reviews, is like the source of truth for those typically Okendo, or are you also sending that data back to whatever that merchant's CRM is, or maybe you only work with select CRMs? Like, can you talk about how that data is collected and then stored?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we like to be the source of truth, at least for the review collection. But some of the integrations that we have built is taking that data and matching it to certain profiles. So the biggest one is
Right.
being Klaviyo with us.
Yep.
So if I was Matt Bingham inside of your Klaviyo account, and you only have my email address, but then I leave a review on this D2C brand, that review information plus any like attributes or zero party data that I gave up in that review submission can be synced into Klaviyo and match my email and customer profile inside of Klaviyo. We
Mhm.
did have a few select ones, hoping we can expand a little bit more, but we really like kind of the best in class route in terms of tech. So we really focus in on some really cool solutions, and really we kind of chose those platforms based upon the market space, right? Like pretty much every merchant that comes to us is on Shopify using Klaviyo, so we wanted to really help those brands, those 6,000 plus brands, and I would say a majority of them are using something like that. So we want to be the source of truth. We're going to be able to give you with Okendo Connect some insights and some ways to kind of leverage that data.
Mhm.
But we also realize that like there's other tools that this data could be super valuable for, and we try to sync and send that information over into those channels as best we can. So yeah, it's a great way, and I really love when platforms do connect that way. And we've seen some really cool case studies from our partners that show the value of once they get that rich zero party data, that it had a big effect in terms of like open rates or clicks or sales or whatever the metric may be at the end of the day. So I think we've said it a couple times. It's a way to help retain people, is gathering more data and leveraging it. And I think as marketers too, you want to make the best decisions as a marketer instead of just throwing noodles on the wall and kind of seeing what happens. You want to make decisions based around some sort of data or insights that you have from your customers or whatever platform. So yeah, it's kind of a interesting aspect, and I think it's a big impact in whatever channel you're trying to market towards.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. Like with all the feature updates and releases and everything. It's interesting that Noah, your mind went to Walmart. My mind went to like Meta and what the Meta integration and what that experience looks like. So, question for you, Matt, in terms of, and apologies if you said this, but when like someone is going to like shop on Facebook, right? Is it they can review like directly on the app with the integration? So like you're staying in Facebook, or does it take you back to like a brand's website, or what does that experience look like?
Yeah, if you notice on like when you're on maybe a brand's Instagram page, they might have like an Instagram store that you click. So when you open that up and there's like a product for a shirt or a pair of pants, you'll be able to see the embedded like reviews underneath those product listings, which you couldn't before.
Right,
So
gotcha.
it's just really kind of, again, bringing social proof to a new marketplace or channel. And I think brands are trying to find new channels, and Meta Instagram shops have become kind of a newer trend in the past couple of years. And I've bought one or two, just random brands. I've bought one or two. So it'll be interesting to see how 5 years from now, is that where people are leaning in more compared to going to like a D2C shop. I think brands probably want them to come more to their D2C shop, but if they get a sale at the end of the day, like who cares where they bought it from? And I say that tagline all the time. Some people are like, trying to find out the attribution model, or, maybe they used a discount code from a pop-up that they got. Sometimes like we're losing margins. I'm like, well, you got one sale that you probably wouldn't have gotten anyway. So like,
so like take it as a win.
There's the win. So yeah, it's interesting. So we'll see what happens with Meta in the next couple of months.
And then, so if you purchase on Instagram, say, and then like, is there any sort of follow up or like pop up in the app to be like, oh, review, or I guess you wouldn't have the product yet, right? So you'd have to wait. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you usually wait until the product's like either delivered, and then you wait X amount of days. It's usually like 3 to 7 days. It's kind of a window, because you obviously want that window of like it's new and fresh, but also like give people a chance for returns or whatever it may be. But you could set that all up inside of Okendo with the review request and
and automate it. Yeah. I do also want to mention that we're currently speaking about this, but when the product features are actually released, it'll be public knowledge, because I made a side note to mention that, because we've been saying like, oh, like next week they'll be released. So we're recording end of September, and this will be published early October. So just want to clarify all of that for listeners if that was hard to follow in the intro. But that's super great. Yeah. Very exciting stuff.
Very exciting. I think it's a great time of year to do it right before the holidays. And, the early beta users and the testing we've had has been like phenomenal. Some of the agencies that we work with are like super excited. So we're really excited to see when it goes to market and what our whole database says, because it's going to be a pretty big update. And I think it's really going to help us kind of expand outside of just reviews. We'll be a little bit more of a robust platform, which it's exciting. I'm really pumped for it. So,
Mariah, you killed me on the Walmart versus Meta thing. Like, I'm struggling so hard already that I turn 30 years old next week, and you just absolutely crushed me.
I didn't even think about that too. I was just like, oh my God, like I'm so like, I was like, I want to hear more about the Meta integration.
All right, before I lose it.
Yeah, before Noah and I have to go fight offline. Yeah.
Oh man. Let's bring it back to the personal side, Matt. I think this was awesome. We are so lucky to have you on, and all of like I just think it's so dope that we like get to have so like such smart people on this. And so like I like to ask rather than like something specific to Okendo or even e-commerce, which you could talk about that. Like what's one tip you have or resource that you'd recommend that you feel like has been like impactful or that you'd recommend for your career
Oh,
overall?
interesting. I wouldn't say it's anything like a specific book or blog or something. I think the thing that's really kind of helped me in my career is like really just asking people about their own experiences. We've had a couple one-on-ones, Noah, that I've gotten to know you, and we've talked about you guys building out your partner program, and like
Right.
I think just hearing from people in the space has been like a really great learning tool for not only building relationships and getting to know people because it's hard. We're all on Zoom every day, like talking to people across the country. It's a great way to like help build relationships, but I think it helps build your own like ideas of like what you might want to do. And I think also like leaning into a lot of like mentors or people in the space. So like one of my favorite people that I worked with for a year or two, her name was Jamie Tharp. She was one of the original like Bronto partnership people. She came to Justuno for a while. She's been in partnership since like 2009 or 10. So like I learned a lot from her just by mirroring and shadowing her, but also like asking stupid, dumb questions that some people are afraid to ask sometimes. I just kind of blurt it out and be like, well, what is this? Or how does this work? And mentors are kind of a great thing to do. And even though they're not mentors, I think following people in the space as well, like John Pruitt from Dacity, I follow him on LinkedIn. You see other people pop up, Jeremy Horowitz from Gorgeous, like he's
Yep.
always posting things. Marco from Whiplash,
Yeah.
he's posting things. So like, I think it's just exposing yourself to a lot of information, especially in your vertical or niche, whether it's marketing or CSM or sales or partnerships, whatever it may be, is like really a great way to like take that information and then find your own path. And I think that's one thing that sometimes I think a lot of people try to do is like, oh, I'm going to copy this and kind of do it that way, which is fine. There's going to be times you can do that, but I think it's also important to like retain a lot of information and say, let's try something else and maybe be fast to fail, try something and see if it works. And if it doesn't, then, kind of move on. So I don't really have like a specific book that I, lean
Yeah.
into, like changed my whole perception of the world. I think it's just more people. And I think that's really kind of at the end of the day where you learn the most is on the fly, intangible, talking day to day with everybody. So yeah, that would be my advice. Just like soak up everything you can, talk to whoever will listen to you, and what's the saying? You have two ears and one mouth. So
Yeah. Keep that in mind. I
and so
I I love that answer so much, especially because I can relate. I mean, I was brand new to e-commerce really about 5 months ago, and wouldn't I wouldn't be comfortable enough to be co-hosting this podcast, right? Like if I didn't have the network that I was able to build and like the kind people around me who were willing to share their experiences, you being a major one of those, like you know we we haven't only talked about tech partnerships, but we've talked about agencies and the ecosystem overall, and many other leaders in the space have been super kind to give me their time as I sort of learn the ropes. And like
yeah,
I would say that that's probably been the biggest impact on me personally too, especially because like I'm a one man team here, and so without without the others willing to help, it'd be really really hard.
yeah, no, you'd be surprised. People will be willing to help, even competitors. If you talk to them, they'll be willing to chat with you. Like, I mean, people at the end of the day want to help people, even though we're in kind of a weird society moment, I guess, in the past 10 years with COVID and all these changes and things like that.
Right.
But I think at the end of the day, most people want to help each other, and I think it's hard to ask. It's hard to ask sometimes, but it's worth asking because you know, what's the worst that's going to happen? Say no, and then you just move on. So,
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, this has been super fun, Matt. I super pumped to share with the audience. Great insights, great career story, great advice at the end. So really appreciate you and for your time today.
No, that thank you for having me on. Thank you for partnering with us. I'm excited to kind of continue to work with you guys. And for brands listening, good luck with Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I think it's a great time of year for your brand to grow. And yeah, we'll see how it comes out at the other side in 2023.
Very exciting stuff. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.